how do I even... Hey guys, it's Shelby, and today we're going to talk about something that is not the most fun thing to talk about, but I think it's important. I don't know, it's so weird because I feel like I've talked about my mental health in the past a little bit on this channel with some things I've been through, like my background. I talked about my little depression that I went through for a few months last year. And I feel like I've shared a lot of things like that with you guys, but for some reason, I've never made a video about my anxiety. I guess because in my head, I've been telling myself that I've overcome it, and it's gotten better, and it's fine. And for spurts of my life, it is. I haven't had a lot of issues with it over the last, almost a year. For a while, I haven't had a lot of problems with it. But it always finds a way to creep back in. So I guess my idea for the outline of this video is I'll tell you a little bit about my background, where I have been told and have always thought my anxiety has come from, when I started realizing it, when I started taking control of it, and then things that I've done to manage it as best as I can. Because I think that we live in a world that just literally breeds anxiety. As much as I try to live outside of that, and trust me, that has been one of the biggest things that have helped me, but as much as I try to push against that, it's there. And everybody has different anxiety triggers. We'll get into that in a little bit, but let me, I guess, talk about... It's making me anxious talking about this. I'm not afraid to talk about it, and I think it's important to talk about, but it's not fun. It's not fun to relive these things and try to explain them, but I think it's important for you guys to know who I am and where I come from, and also just to hopefully connect with someone who's been through something similar as you have, because again, I'll tell you a little bit later, I haven't always had that. So in my household growing up, anxiety was definitely a huge factor in life. My mom has very severe anxiety, and my dad has anger issues. Not so much anxiety, I would say. No, he definitely does get anxious as well. The problem with this is that neither of them knew it. Neither of them recognized it as anxiety, recognized it as a mental issue. I didn't either. When I was younger, I just thought my dad gets angry easily, my mom bickers about everything and is controlling and blah blah blah. Oh god, it really is mentally exhausting to try to relive these things. Anyway, so I can't give a lot of specific examples, but just little things that didn't make sense would blow up. So I never realized it when I was younger. I actually didn't realize it until I was in college that this was an issue. So I also had anxiety pretty much my whole life. More of a learned behavior because I saw how my parents handled conflict or stress or just any sort of inconvenience in life. But it was also a physical thing because I would get the heartbeats, the sweats, the vision that pulsates, that sort of thing. My anxiety is pretty severe, more than other people just have they get worried and they're anxious, but mine is a physical anxiety as well. It probably also doesn't help that I had an abusive boyfriend in my childhood who was a very anxious, controlling person. If you guys haven't seen my story times talking about that, I have a lot. I'll link them in the cards and in the description. I think that contributed a lot. But when I was early college, late high school, I was dating a different guy who was... He's a great guy. He's a really good guy. We were never supposed to be together, I don't think. I don't think we were ever meant... Well, I mean, maybe we were meant to be in each other's lives whenever we were, but we were never meant to be together long term, basically. I took him for granted a lot. This is a whole thing. This is a whole huge part of my life that I haven't talked about on here, and I haven't admitted it to many people because it's weird. It's a weird time in my life. But basically, I took him for granted our entire relationship. He was very, very in love with me, and I just kind of saw him as he's there, he loves me, and we have fun together, so whatever. Whenever he broke up with me, was whenever I realized I had a problem. I realized that he was walking away from me, and I didn't think that was okay, and so my controlling tendencies were like just exploding. Like the things that I learned in childhood, how to deal with issues, were just like coming out to the max. That was the most anxiety ridden time in my life. Like trying to control a situation so badly and not being able to is what brings on my anxiety. Spoiler alert. That's one of my biggest triggers, is whenever something is out of my control, it gives me so much uncontrollable anxiety. And so that's what that was. I didn't want him to break up with me because I didn't want it to be on his terms and not mine, which is a whole nother issue. I used to be a completely different person, but I know that's when a lot of these issues came up. Oh, you guys, I stopped eating. I dropped like 30 pounds in a month. I couldn't sleep. I was like dependent on melatonin. It was a horrible time in my life, and it does give me so much anxiety to think back to that time. But I'm thankful I went through it because it taught me a lot about myself and also woke me up to realizing that I had a problem and that I needed to take care of it. Oh my God, I hate it. I hate it so much. I hate that time in my life so much. I'm not ashamed of it because I have changed, but it is shameful the way I acted and the things I did. So that's when I realized I had a problem. We officially broke up, this guy and I moved off to college. So it wasn't really an issue I had to address because one of the biggest triggers in my life, like I said, is when I can't control a situation. So when you're not in a relationship with someone, there's nothing for you to control. Like your life is all about you. You make all the decisions for yourself for the most part. And so I don't really experience the high levels of anxiety when I am dealing with just my own stuff, if that makes sense. So we broke up, and so for like 4 or 5, I don't know, a lot of months, I didn't have these problems. And I guess in my head I thought, oh, I overcome it. I'm not having those panic attacks anymore. I'm not anxious all the time. I'm still an introverted person, and so just being around large crowds also gives me anxiety, but it's not that fight or flight anxiety where my heart rate goes through the roof and I'm sweating. It's just kind of like, oh, I'm uncomfortable, I really don't want to be here kind of feeling. I hope you guys are keeping up with this. I feel like this is a lot, but I feel like it's important for me to tell you. So for 6-ish months, let's say, I thought I had overcome all these issues because I wasn't having them. And then I met Madison. Or I had met Madison sooner, but then we started dating April of 2014. So there was a while there where I thought it was gone. And then I got in a relationship with Madison. It didn't take too long for Madison to figure out that I had controlling tendencies that brought on my anxiety. I can't remember the first fight we had, what it was about. It doesn't really matter what it was about, because the point is that I'm a controlling person and I don't really handle it in the best of ways. Not that I get mean per se, like I don't call names or put people down, but it's just like my emotions get very heightened. But it comes from my anxiety trigger being control, and if I lose control, you know, I'm trying to stop myself from having anxiety by controlling the situation, if that makes sense. So, to make a long story short, then when I started dating Madison, I knew I had to do something about my anxiety. So for our first year, 2 years, I tried to do it myself. And to be honest, I overcame a lot of my issues on my own because I couldn't afford therapy at the time, to be honest with you. And I didn't really have time to do it because when you're a student and you're working and you're moving and you're doing all these things, it's just kind of hard to have enough time to do therapy. And I didn't know about BetterHelp back then, so I couldn't really go to therapy. The biggest thing I did throughout that time where I figured it out on my own was just learning self-awareness. Like I said, for the longest time as a child, a young adult living at my parents' house, I didn't know that I had anxiety. I didn't know that I had control issues. I didn't know that my parents had mental anxiety issues. So learning that and learning what that meant was the biggest part of it. I don't know if a lot of people, I don't know, because I don't know what your experience is. This has just been my experience, is I would have all these problems and it was causing havoc in my relationships, but I didn't know that it was like a diagnosable, treatable type of issue. I just thought that that was who I was. And to an extent it's true, but that's not a good part of me that I wanted to keep. It's something that I wanted to fix. So being aware of the fact that you have it is the most important thing, I would say. And the next most important thing is recognizing your triggers. So obviously I've already told you, losing control of a situation is like the biggest trigger for me. It still is. I don't have an anxiety attack now every time I lose control, but I do still feel a lot of anxiety when I want something to go a certain way, but I can't fix it. I think that's just the main one. Like I said, being in large groups of people is another, things like that. But figure out what that is for you is going to be probably the biggest, most impactful tip I can give you in this video. Is self-awareness is so, so important. It's the key to figuring this out. It's the key to figuring out your life path, your passion, who you want to be with, who you want to be, where you want to spend your time. It is so important. And I had none. Oh wow, the lighting is changing. This is what happens when we're using natural light. But I had no recollection or recognition of self-awareness when I was younger. I don't even think my parents have it now, which is pretty sad because I think that it has made me such a happier person to be able to recognize who I am and take control of who I want to be. And I think that in general can help a lot of people with anxiety, depression, life path, purpose, meaning, those sort of things that everyone seeks in life. Everyone wants to feel fulfilled. And if you know those things about you, then it's a lot easier to feel that. But if you don't, you just kind of a person going through the motions of trying to live life. And I think that's a very unintentional way of living, and that's not something that I'm interested in. So I would highly recommend you guys try everything you absolutely can. This is different than like controlling anxiety, but it could also be the same thing, because depending on what your triggers are, if you're anxious about what am I going to do with my life, just trying more and more things and figuring out what you like and what you want to do, I think that's a huge part of anxiety for our society. Because in the society, at least in the US, it's always trying to keep up with what the next trend is. But if you know who you are and what you want to be, then you don't have to worry about those things, because they don't matter, because you are still you, regardless of what societal norms are. I think that's why our society breeds anxiety, because they're always telling us who we need to be and what's cool and what's not, and you should live up to this standard and that standard. But as soon as you realize who you are, none of that matters. It doesn't matter at all. That was a little bit of a tangent, but I also think it is really, really helpful. At least for me. I don't know what your triggers are. They could be something completely different. But yeah, I think that's a really good thing to keep in mind. Self-awareness is key. Okay, so here's the part that's not so fun. For the first 2 years, I would say I tried to control it on my own. And it was pretty good. I didn't have a lot of anxiety attacks, and I was able to kind of deal with it a lot better. But then I moved to California. There was, again, about 6 months there where I moved to California. Madison was finishing school. I had graduated and needed something to do, and I had always wanted to live in California, so I went to California to do AmeriCorps. It was just difficulty dealing with separation in a relationship. It puts strain on your relationship. And my history with controlling tendencies and anxiety just kind of ramped up. So there was a point where Madison wouldn't answer the phone for me and wouldn't talk to me for 2 weeks. I mean, imagine not being able to get a hold of your girlfriend because she's mad at you for 2 weeks. It was not a fun time in my life. And that was the peak of anxiety I've had in a long time, because completely out of my control. No way for me to control that situation. No way for me to get a hold of her. Absolute chaos in Shelby's mind. And that's when I decided it was time to go to therapy. Because I had done pretty well. But once things got out of my control to that peak, I kind of relapsed into having anxiety attacks on a daily basis at that point. So that's when I started going to in-person formal therapy. Even though I was completely broke, I had the time to go, so that was good. But yeah, I was broke. I don't know if you guys know how much people in AmeriCorps make, but it's below minimum wage in California. So that's when I started formal therapy. I went to formal therapy from that point on for about, I would say, 6 months, and then I felt a lot better. But when I moved back from California, I was again really busy and couldn't afford therapy. So that's when I found out about BetterHelp when I was living here. And I'm still doing a lot of things to deal with my anxiety on my own, which I'll get into. But nothing is as helpful as someone with an outside perspective. because that's what people on BetterHelp do for me. I explain to them what I'm going through and they say, okay, but have you considered this? Have you tried this? Do you understand that that is happening because of this? And that's the thing about anxiety, is it's not logical. I like to think of myself as a very logical person, but anxiety is not that. And so whenever I'm having a moment or episode of anxiety, I can't reason myself out of it, but someone from an outside perspective can. And so BetterHelp is very affordable. I've now stopped going to regular therapy for myself altogether and just switched to BetterHelp because, number one, like I said, it's really affordable, and it also saves me a lot of time because they're flexible with their schedules, because we don't have to physically meet in person. I can just call them, and they have a lot of times that work for me because I need something after work hours, and that's really hard to find in like an in-person therapist. I would basically have to take off work every other week to go if I wasn't doing BetterHelp, and I can't do that at a professional job. The other really nice part about BetterHelp is if someone you're talking to you don't really connect with, then you can switch to someone else. Like, they have so many therapists to speak with that if someone isn't matching up with you, then you just say, I think I'm gonna try someone else. And I've done that a couple times just because I've been looking for someone who is really good with like anxiety and they have understanding of my triggers, and so it's been really helpful to do that on BetterHelp. So I've talked about them before. They're not sponsoring this video, but if you guys are looking for affordable therapy that will save you a lot of time and you don't have to worry about taking off work to go and losing money or losing vacation time or whatever it is, I'm going to leave a link to them in the description box. I just really like them, and I think they're really, really important. So check them out. But I also want to tell you guys some things that I do on a regular basis to deal with my anxiety, because I said in a video last week that the reason I've been kind of absent on my channel is I'm going through a time of like heightened anxiety, but it almost feels like depression. And because I have tried so hard over the last like couple years to be more self-aware, I just know it's there, and I can't really keep going when I know that I need to take care of myself, if that makes sense. Like, self-awareness is a great thing, but when you need to be productive, it can be a not so great thing. So I think with my anxiety, there is a micro sense of dealing with it, and there's the macro sense. So I think things like self-awareness and therapy, that's macro. You need to do that as like upkeep in your life. Like, if I'm regularly dealing with my anxiety and talking about my like mental health with my therapist, then it's a lot easier to maintain the micro. If I am self-aware of what's going on with my body, my mind, my emotions, whatever, it's a lot easier in the micro to deal with it. So what I mean by macro is like my overall mental health, but micro is whenever I'm having an anxiety attack, or like something is bringing me anxiety, or you know, something's happening in my life that I need to deal with. So those are the two things I do on macro. But on micro, the most important tip I'm going to give you guys, what are the things that you notice happen as you're leading up to an anxiety attack? Does your breath change? Does your heart rate change? Do you start sweating? What is it that's bringing those things on? And try to eliminate them as much as you can. Or if you know it's coming, prepare yourself. These two tips kind of go hand in hand. So recognizing your triggers and then dealing with them. Does that make sense? So let's say tonight Madison comes home and she says, we have to do this tomorrow. That always freaks me out. Short-term plans, control issues. But I just kind of deal with it, because if I don't deal with it, I'm going to have an anxiety attack, and who is that going to help? Ask yourself, if I freak out right now, if I have an anxiety attack, if I let my fear of controlling the situation just peak itself, who is that helping? You know what I mean? Like, I have to do this thing tomorrow. That gives me anxiety. I don't have time to plan. I don't have time to think about things. I don't have time to plan. I didn't get to make this decision. I'm gonna freak out. But if you try to realize that it's coming and you can take conscious control of it, then ask yourself, what is having an anxiety attack gonna help right now? Absolutely nothing. It's just literally gonna make Madison angry that I'm freaking out on her. It's gonna give me like these heart things. I don't know what you call them, but my heart just beats so fast. You're gonna get really anxious. It's gonna make you exhausted, because anxiety attacks are exhausting. And everybody's just gonna be in a bad mood after you have an anxiety attack, Shelby. And it doesn't help anything. So I think realizing your triggers and trying to take control of them before it gets to that is so powerful. It has been for me. And it could totally be different for you because I don't know what your triggers are. But those are mine. 2 other things I've done that I think have helped my anxiety in the macro, well, in the micro I think, are meditation and doing my best to give up caffeine. Meditation is so freaking helpful for so many things in your life, you guys. If you just take 10 minutes a day to do like self-care, self-reflection, it will change your life. If you're journaling every day, if you get to work in the first 10 minutes of work, you just sit down and you're to yourself and you're journaling. If you have a job that can do that, that's something that I've been doing. That is awesome because I'm really bad at waking up early to meditate, but I can get to work and for 10 minutes just like journal about what I'm feeling or how I'm feeling. And I consider that to be meditation just because I'm all right here. Everything is right here and I'm dealing with it and like peacefully, like just feeling my emotions. I think it's so important, you guys. So if you have not, challenge yourself for a week, for just 1 week, for 10 minutes, sit down and just be present with yourself. It's so, so important. So please try that. If you do, let me know. I would love to hear if anything I said today helped you, so let me know. And giving up caffeine, because caffeine is just an anxiety drug. It's like an immediate anxiety inducer in the short sense when you're having that rush and just overall the health of your body. So do your best. If you drink coffee every day, try not doing that. Try switching to decaf. Try making it every other day. Try doing something so that you're not drinking so much caffeine. My problem wasn't Coke. My problem wasn't coffee, it was soda. And I've been getting control of that and it has helped me so much, you guys. So, those are the main things I wanted to tell you. I wanted to tell you about my anxiety, but then I also wanted to give you some tips. I think this video is going to be so freaking long and I'm sorry. Let me know in the comments if you made it all the way here. Put hashtag meditate with Shelby or something in the comments so I know who stayed till the end. Hashtag meditate with Shelby. That's adorable. Okay, do that. Things to think about. What are your triggers? Figure them out, write them down. When you figure them out, do your best to deal with them and stop them before they get bad. Try therapy, try BetterHelp if you're looking for an affordable option that can save you a lot of time. I think that's amazing. Stop drinking caffeine, practice self-reflection. Okay, guys? Those are so, so helpful, and I promise, if you try those things, they're going to help you no matter what your anxiety issues are. I know that they will help you. I don't know if they'll solve them for you as much as they have for me, but I know they'll help you. So thank you guys so much for watching. Again, let me know if you made it all the way to the end of this video. And remember, until next time, create the peace.